It began with silence, not a scream, not a bang, not even a whisper, just absence. One early morning in the spring of 1829, as the first light crept through the marble arches of Topkapi Palace, a trusted guard approached the inner treasury with his usual reverence. This was no ordinary room. It was the Hazine-i-Hassa, the privy treasury, where the empire's most sacred and priceless items were stored. But that morning, something was different. The thick iron doors were still locked. There were no signs of a break-in. The lamps inside had burned low overnight, but one glance inside, and the color drained from the guard's face. Jewels were missing. Not just any jewels. Among the vanished were the emerald dagger of Sultan Mahmud I, a diamond-studded Quran, and a ceremonial jade belt worn only during coronations. All gone. There were no broken locks, no struggling servants, no suspicious footprints on the polished floors. Only the terrifying realization that someone with access, someone from within, had stolen from the heart of the empire. The news spread like wildfire within the court. But outside the palace, nothing. Not a word. The Ottoman bureaucracy reacted in the only way it knew how, with secrecy. An internal investigation was launched, and a silence decree was issued. Anyone who leaked word of the theft would be tried for treason. The Sultan's elite guard, the Bostansha Corps, were tasked with quietly questioning servants, scribes, and treasurers behind closed doors. But the palace was no ordinary house. It was a kingdom within a kingdom, where every wall had ears. Suspicion fell quickly on Halil Aga, the long-serving treasurer who had guarded the vaults for nearly 25 years. A man of precision, discipline, and quiet loyalty. He was known to walk the treasury alone at night, checking the glass cabinets, polishing the ceremonial weapons, and ensuring that even the tiniest gemstone was in its proper place. But Halil had recently made one fatal mistake. A few weeks before the disappearance, he had allowed a foreign ambassador's entourage, including a mysterious interpreter, to tour the outer treasury hall. Officially, it was a diplomatic courtesy. Unofficially, it was a violation of security protocol. Within days, Halil was dismissed, his household ransacked, and he was quietly exiled to Edirne. No trial. No formal charges. But the jewels? Still gone. Behind the scenes, the case took an even darker turn. An anonymous letter reached the Sultan's personal aide. It was written in Ottoman Turkish but carried Greek poetic phrasing, and its message was chilling. The dagger sleeps under foreign skies. The Quran rides with the wind beyond your grasp. The implication? This was not just theft. It was espionage, perhaps revenge. It was rumored that Russian or British agents might have orchestrated the heist, using the interpreter as a smuggler, exploiting the empire's weaknesses at a time when it teetered between reform and rebellion. Was this political sabotage? Or personal vendetta? What made the crime even more disturbing was how deliberate it appeared. Nothing bulky was taken, only symbolic pieces. The emerald dagger, shaped like a crescent moon, encrusted with diamonds, believed to hold protective powers for the Sultan. The diamond Quran, passed down through generations, read aloud during the Sultan's coronation. The jade belt, worn only once in a ruler's lifetime. This wasn't about greed. It was about message. Someone had stripped the empire of its symbols of divine right and eternal power without shedding a single drop of blood. For months, the Sultan refused to speak of the matter publicly. But behind closed doors, Mahmud II, a reformer fighting to drag the empire into modernity, was enraged. He ordered the internal spy network to dig deeper. Entire palace wings were reshuffled. Servants vanished. Eunuchs were reassigned. Files went missing. And one senior treasurer reportedly threw himself into the Bosphorus. Or so the court claimed. But even then, the jewels were never recovered. Not a single one. And slowly, the court stopped asking questions. The theft of the Ottoman crown jewels wasn't just a heist. It was a mirror reflecting the cracks within the empire. An empire that had once terrified Europe, now unable to protect its own symbols. An elite class obsessed with honor and ritual, exposed by a ghost who walked among them. For centuries, the Ottomans had ruled through a careful balance of fear, tradition, and mystery. But on that silent spring morning, all three were shattered. And the greatest mystery? Not how the jewels disappeared, but why no one ever spoke of it again. But what if the jewels never left Istanbul at all? What if they still lie buried beneath the very palace that failed to protect them? Because in the Ottoman Empire, Treasure wasn't always measured in gold, but in secrets that refused to die. Months turned into years. By 1832, the missing jewels of the Ottoman treasury had faded into whispers. A few aging courtiers would still glance nervously at the sealed doors of the Hazine-i Hassa, as if the room itself carried the shame of betrayal. But inside the intelligence wing of the empire, the file remained open, marked only by two crimson words: Ihanet devletin kalbinde, betrayal at the heart of the state. Despite the silence in court, a small team of agents, known as the Kalem Efendileri or Lords of the Pen, had been investigating in secret. Their orders came directly from Sultan Mahmud II, now growing more ruthless as his reforms faced violent resistance. Their work led them to an unlikely place: the old slave quarters beneath Topkapi, converted years ago into underground archives, rarely visited, dimly lit by oil lanterns, and filled with forgotten records. There, in the margins of an 1817 inventory ledger, they found a scribbled note. Kefki replaced. Emerald held for inspection by H on 18 Rebiulevvel. A coded message. Kefki was a known cipher reference to the second vault door, opened only with a ceremonial dagger-shaped key. And H? Many suspected Halil Aga, the dismissed treasurer. But Halil had died in exile, officially of illness. Unofficially, poisoned, many believed, to protect someone else. So the investigators turned to Halil's successor, a younger, ambitious man named Yahya Effendi. Yahya was charismatic, meticulous, and well-connected within the court. His sudden rise after Halil's exile had raised quiet questions. But more suspicious was this: Yahya had recently purchased a large estate outside Istanbul, something far beyond a treasurer's salary. Worse still, the very interpreter suspected in the ambassador's visit, the man believed to have facilitated the escape of the jewels, had been spotted in the same district just months earlier. Coincidence? Unlikely. In the dead of night, the Kalem Efendileri raided Yahya's estate. What they found wasn't the missing dagger or the diamond Quran, but maps. Hand-drawn, delicate parchment maps of Topkapi's underground tunnels, some of which no one had seen in centuries. These weren't plans for theft. They were proof of one. Someone had used the forgotten tunnels beneath the treasury, perhaps accessed during routine repairs or maintenance, to move the items without ever unlocking the main vaults. That explained the lack of damage, the silence, the precision. The thief or thieves hadn't broken in at Dynasty. They had walked out. Yahya was brought in for interrogation. He denied everything, calmly, coldly. No evidence, he said, just rumors. And without the missing dagger, Quran, or belt, he was right. But days later, he was dead. His body was discovered in a cistern near the Galata district, his mouth stuffed with gold coins. A chilling Ottoman warning: silence has value. The death sparked panic in the palace again. But Sultan Mahmud issued no statement. Instead, he ordered all records of the missing jewels sealed permanently. And the investigation halted. Officially, the jewels had been relocated for preservation. Unofficially, the mystery was buried, deep beneath layers of loyalty, lies, and legacy. The mystery of the missing Ottoman jewels remains unsolved, not because the truth is unknown, but because those who knew it vanished. It was a moment that marked the twilight of Ottoman majesty, when even the sacred treasures could be stolen without a war, without a battle, without even a whisper. But this wasn't merely about wealth. It was about symbolism: the dagger, the Quran, the coronation belt, each one a thread in the empire's identity. Their theft meant more than loss. It meant exposure. And in an empire built on secrecy, nothing was more dangerous than being seen. Today, rumors still swirl around Istanbul of a private collector in Vienna with an emerald-studded dagger he won't let anyone photograph. Of a sealed wall in Topkapi's basement that once rang hollow when struck. And of a curse whispered among older palace guards: whoever wears the belt without the Sultan's blessing will lose his mind by sunrise. The Ottoman Empire was built on glory, but sometimes its true power lay in what it chose to hide.